Welcome to the December Shotsuki Memorial and Adult Dharma Service. Glad you could join us. We'd like to begin by reading the names of those who've passed away in the month of December. Wakako Adachi, Larry Aikawa, Yoneko Aochi, Koto Aoyagi, Yasutaro Chiyoda, Jean Dent, Fumi Doi, Goro Endo, Takako Endo, Fusakichi Fuji, Keri Fuji, George Fujino, Noboru Fukuchi, Michiko Fukutomi, Emiko Furuta, Toshiko Furuta, Jay Gluck, Sumi Hiramoto Gluck, Mutsu Gonda, Utaro Harada, Kinuko Diana Hayashi, Osue Hirabayashi, Fred Hiramoto, Fuji Ikeda, Tom Ikemiya, Fred Kaneshige, Dick Kanzaki, Keishu Kanzaki, Otokichi Kashima, Tamesaku Kataoka, Kiyono Kawabata, Yuji Kawabata, Hisa Kawamoto, Pearl Kawamoto, Ryu Kawaoka, Yufu Kisanuki, Kei Saburo Koda, Kazuo Koizumi, Takehei Kono, Heitaro Kosobayashi, Margaret Kubota, Miyosuke Kuramura, Robin Sasaki Ledecker, Torahei Masuoka, Ben Matsui, Matsu Matsui, Chosei Matsui, Fusako Matsutani, Kinu Matsutani, Rokusaburo Miyamoto, Masato Mori, Yoshihisa Mori, Naoto Roy Muramoto, Yotaro Najima, Nobori Nakagawa, Toru Tam Nakagawa, Hiroshi Nakai, Masato Nakao, Jin Nakao, Shigeko Nakao, Takashi Nakao, Seiichi Nakatani, Eiichi Nakazono, Saburo Natsuhara, Gloria Natsuhara, Nobuko Natsuhara, Masako Neishi, Sadaichi Neishi, George Nobori, Don Nomiyama, Jerry Nomura, Sekinosuke Okai, Mary Fumie Okamura, Shinji Okamura, Hide Okano, Kimio Okawachi, Takashi Okawachi, Keiji Onizuka, Jane Otsuka, Tomio Otsuka, Wendy Mitsu Pendro, Yukiko Sakakura, Jun Sasaki, Yukichi Sasaki, Mitsuzo Satake, Helen Sato, Julie Seiji Shibata, Kunio Shibata, Tomino Shigemoto, Amy Shimada, Yoshizo Shimamoto, Masao Shinomoto, Shigeyoshi Sua, Hatsue Tsunagawa, Itsu Takahashi, Michi Takashima, Yoshitsugu Takeda, Seikatsu Takesaka, Teiko Tamori, Ichiro Tanaka, Masaichi Tanaka, Masayo Tani, Kusu Tanita, Tadashi Teraura, Keiji Toyofuku, Mary Tsuboi, Shozo Tsuboi, Ayako Agnes Tsuji, Yumiko Tsujimoto, Jane Uemura, Shigekazu Umemoto, Kin Usui, Teruko Ueno, George Watanabe, Yotaro Watanabe, Howard Worrell, Yoshio Yabe, Naozo Yago, George Yamaguchi, Noboru Yamanaka, Masato Yamashita, Takefumi Yasuda, Masai Yokomizo, Nobue Noi Yokomizo, Yonekichi Yokomizo, Stephen Young. Next we will have Sutra chanting, and we will chant Sanbutsuge, and you can chant along, and the words will be at the bottom of the screen if you want to do that, or you can think about your loved ones during the chanting. Namandam, 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 namandam. Kogen gigi, ijin mugok, nyoze emyo, muyo tosha, Nichigatmani Shuko Enyo Kai Shipnom Pe Yunyaku Jumok Nyorai Yogem 朝鮮無人小学第四こぬ実法開門精進三昧知恵意徳無量主生慶人体前年小仏北海愚人人の空語外体無明欲ぬ世尊読む人の死死人徳無量空君古代知恵人妙光明一層神道大仙願が差仏在所法華道生じ未不下脱不正上位解任精進如是三昧知恵以上五世特部不行志願一切空空一切大安決しうぶ百千億万無量大小春行五者供養一切死と小仏不尿具道検証不脚頻尿五者小仏世界不不可け無種sep道光明師匠変師小国如是精進異人難女両が差仏国土第一五種奇妙道場超絶国如内音ニムトソガトアイミンドダプニサイジポ内緒新ネプ少女イトガ国ケラクアンノコブ神妙ゼガ神書ホプガンの非力少々欲実法世尊知恵無下上女子孫知が信行権量心死食毒中行精進臨終不敬ナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブ do sei sai do hoten bo dai shin o jo an na ko namandam 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 namandam. Okay, thank you once again for joining us for our December Shotsuki monthly memorial service and adult Dharma service. It is this monthly memorial service that we do, and it's not limited to families of those who've passed away. We've always had this as kind of a public service, or at least in the time that I've been here, and yet that is such an important part of this service, the memorial, right? The remembering of those who've passed away in this month. And I think it's a really great service, actually. I didn't grow up religious. I didn't grow up going to a temple or a church or anything. And I was actually very fortunate early on in life to never lose someone close to me. But in the past 20 years, have both become a minister and been doing these services now for over 10 years. But also, I lost my mother in 2000. And then this month, tomorrow, as you're watching this video, my father passed away 20 years ago in December of 2001. This is while I was still a student, before I went back to Japan to get ordained and go for more school. And thinking back, it was really difficult. And so I wanted to affirm that losing a loved one is probably one of the most, if not the most difficult thing we go through in life. My dad wasn't in great health. He was, okay most of the time, and yet he'd had a heart attack before I was born, and again when I was a kid, and so I always had this kind of knowledge in the background of my father's mortality, and yet had him in my life for 30 years. Knowing that he, that was part of the good thing for me was, wow, I had my dad in my life for 30 years. And yet, still hard to lose him, even knowing his health wasn't good, even knowing, that I was very fortunate to have had him in my life. So, obviously when someone dies too young, that really, really hits hard. But even losing someone in their 90s that you've had, maybe you've had them in your life for 50, 60 years, it's still hard, right? Still hard. So I want to affirm that also. And then if this is your Shotsuki, that means you lost a loved one during the holidays. November, anytime is hard. But I think sometimes this season, the winter holiday season, we might call it here in the United States, makes it that much harder. I know this from experience. Christmas was, I grew up in the United States pretty much non-religiously and general American kind of thing with Thanksgiving and Christmas and, and Santa Claus, not Jesus, right, for Christmas. So to lose him during that time in December, that first Christmas, I think was difficult. But the second one was hard too. And I remember this because I was in Japan. I went back to go to Ryukoku University. I was kind of getting ready to go in. I'd take an entrance exam, I think, and I was trying to study. And I would go to like coffee shops to study. It kind of didn't matter where you went. Coffee shop, the station, restaurant, Christmas music everywhere. It's kind of weird, right? To think Japan is like being Christmas, but I think it's more of like a consumer kind of thing, right? It's not even a holiday, but it's taken over in a lot of ways, and so I couldn't get away from it. And I didn't know why I was so upset for a while until I realized, oh my gosh, it's a year since my dad passed. And I have to, the Christmas was so special for me as a kid. And then to have it thrown in my face, right? And have to go through all this was really, really frustrating. And so to lose someone at this time of year is difficult. And then each year, right? Especially the first few, I think, it can be hard. And maybe you don't realize it. So that to me is one aspect of how Buddhism is part of our memorials. And it's kind of an awareness. Right? I think that is part of Buddhism to try and be mindful and aware of my feelings, of my thoughts. And in this case, my feelings aren't just something in my head. It's my feelings and my relationship to my father. And so a lot of times my feelings and thoughts are related to him, or especially, in this time after I lost him. And so that to me is one of the messages I wanted to give, right? That I think it's good, it's healthy to, don't try to stop the feelings. That's not the point, especially in Jodo Shinshu, right? That if you find yourself upset and you've lost a loved one recently, and in terms of life, a year, 2 years, that's recently. Right? Or a week. A week obviously is recently, but you would think a year later? Yeah. Actually, the first year service is considered a mourning period. So if it's only been a year and you find yourself feeling upset when you get to this time of year and then realize, oh my gosh, this is when we lost them. Even realizing that, I think, can change things. You may still be upset, right? But you can realize, oh yeah, this is why I'm just kind of not feeling myself or feeling blue or whatever, right? And so realizing that can help push through maybe. Now, for myself, to be honest, I think it was years before I could even really think about my dad. So I wasn't upset on the surface. Actually, on the surface, I didn't feel anything. But that wasn't good, right? That it took me, I think, 10 years even before I could really think about him, bring him to mind, and not feel so upset that I had to just push it away. And so that's another thing I was thinking. If you don't acknowledge those feelings, it just eats away at you. Right? In hindsight, what I should have done was allowed myself to feel those things rather than push them down. And I think I would have felt better in the long run. But you know what? That was me. Everyone's different. There's no set way to grieve. And so, you have to do it in your way. But I think it's good to think about our loved ones who've passed. I think it's healthy. It hurts still. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. But maybe going through that hurt helps heal it a little bit. And so these memorial services give us that opportunity to heal in that way, right? Healing by mourning. I was kind of surprised to think about, wow, was it really 10 years that I didn't think about my dad? And I think the answer is yes, because I remember when I was finally able to start doing it was here in the Hondo, standing here like this, probably at a Shotsuki service. And I started 2009, and it wasn't at the beginning. It was like 11, 12, So if you passed 2001, that's 10 years. So I think it's right, So awareness of our feelings can be a good thing, right? Awareness of my thoughts, awareness of my feelings, just a kind of awareness and honesty with myself, maybe. Right? It isn't in a vacuum either. It's in the light of Amida Buddha. It's in the context of family and Sangha. So that's another really important aspect of these services, to point us towards recognizing how important relationships are. I think there's an aspect of Buddhism that seems to be leave your family, separate from your family. When we think of monks, right, going off on that path, or we think even of Shakyamuni leaving his family behind, right, as he went off on his quest. But in Jodo Shinshu, I think that family is part of our path, and we don't have to leave our family. We don't have to separate, that we can actually be on this Pure Land path in the context of family. And that's what's so great about it, that you don't have to leave and go away on a retreat or become a monk or something like that. You know, that we're firmly on the path to enlightenment in the midst of daily life, in the midst of our family, in the midst of our attachments. Attachments, and again, attachment is viewed as a kind of a negative thing in Buddhism, and yet our family attachments, right, are important. And Jodo Shinshu, I feel like, really affirms that. Last, I also thought of acceptance of others. And, you know, there's times I think about my parents, I'm like, what were they thinking? What kind of person did they raise? What was, you know, they could have done such a better job. But first of all, I have to take responsibility for myself, but also to realize, I think it was a big realization for me to realize, whoa, my parents are human too, right? My parents weren't perfect, which on one level, you know, but on another level, I think we just because of the way we are as humans, our parents are so important, so special, almost godlike. Right? And so to realize, oh no, they had struggles too. They had traumas and difficulties, and maybe didn't even know what they were doing as parents, you know. And so I remember one of our family friends said that they talked to my father. This is when I was still studying to be a minister and everything, and he was worried about me. Right? And so to think about that, right, and maybe I'll conclude with this, right, and realize, wow, he was worried about me. You know, I mean, he was part of why I ended up the way I am. But to think about him worrying about me, I was realizing, if he could see me now, right, if he was still alive, but, you know, in a way, maybe he is still with me in a way, and I hope he's at least not worried. Proud, I don't know, you know, but thinking about him, right, it's hard, and it's still hard. 20 years later, I can still feel tears coming up, right, and yet also much deeper appreciation than I had when he was alive, right, at least I've learned that much, I think, and, you know, these are really special services for us, this Shotsuki memorial service. We're also going into winter, and, you know, the holidays can be hard even if you don't have a family member on the Shotsuki list. So I want to recognize that too, right? And that, I wish the temple was open so that you could come here, right? And we do plan to try and open, and I'll talk about that a little bit in the announcements. But for now, we're, you know, if you're watching this, you're probably part of the Sangha, whether officially as a dues-paying member or as, you know, family of someone who's being honored today, but also to know that, wow, there is this Sangha, right? Buddhism in some way seems like a you know, very much like personal quest. But like I was talking about with relationships, it's not in a vacuum, right? It's as part of a community. Whether it's an official Buddhist Sangha or just the people you're around and your family and your coworkers and your friends and just random people on the street, they can all be part of that. And the good thing, though, is if we can realize Amida Buddha is rooting for us, is embracing us with wisdom and compassion, wants the best for us, right? Buddha, whether it's like this anthropomorphized Buddha or just like Buddha reality, it's this positive force. And we tap into that maybe when we say Namo Amida Butsu. It's actually Namo Amida Butsu calling out to us, right? So that if we when we say Namo Amida Butsu, we're part of this relationship too. So I'm going to conclude my talk. Why don't we conclude with Gassho? Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Okay, thank you. Just a few announcements. January Shotsuki will be online, same format, but we are hoping to start reopening the temple in January. Definitely, we're aiming for January 16th, which is Hoonko Shinran Shonin's memorial service, so keep an eye out for that. We do plan to continue the online format, but it may be a different format than what we're doing here today, right? Or even the Zoom services. It might be more, directed to the people in attendance, and yet also being streamed or whatever, however we end up doing it. So the BuddhistChurchOfOakland.org website is a great resource. Go and check it when you're wondering about anything. But also, if you want to even join BCO as a member or just subscribe to the mailing list, there will be a link in the description to this video. Check out our other videos. Subscribe if you haven't already and you want to. Click like if you like the video. And yeah, thank you very much for joining us. We'll conclude with Gassho and then have the virtual incense offering. So thank you, everyone. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Naman Dabutsu. Naman.